Hey guys, tonight we are diving headfirst into the complex, shimmering world of 19th century Ethiopian royalty. Imagine a place where every thread in your outfit tells a story, where the shimmer of your jewelry can be a declaration of war, and where your choice of shoes or lack thereof can become a legendary act of defiance. This isn't just a history lesson. It's more like a get ready with me video that spans decades and decides the fate of an entire nation. You are about to step into the life of Taytu Betul, an empress who wielded her wardrobe with more precision than a general wields a sword. You might think fashion is frivolous, but in her world, you could literally lose your empire over a poorly chosen accessory. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And for our little ritual, let me know in the comments what city you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your first memory isn't of a palace, not in the way you might imagine one. There are no cold stone walls or sprawling, manicured gardens like the ones you've heard whispered about in tales from across the sea. Instead, your world is one of movement, of sprawling military camps that feel more like temporary cities, and the constant, thrumming energy of a nation that is both ancient and perpetually on the move. You are born into the beating heart of Ethiopian aristocracy, a world where your bloodline is a map of power, tracing back to dynasties that claim descent from King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. Historians are still piecing together the exact details of your early lineage, debating which ancestral claim held the most weight. But one thing is certain. You are born into a chess game, and you are no pawn. You are not yet Taytu the Empress. You are simply Taytu Betul, a girl whose name means sun. And you are bright. Your father is a powerful regional ruler, Empress, from a region known for its fierce warriors and deep-rooted nobility. From your earliest days, you are surrounded not by courtly jesters, but by strategists, priests, and seasoned commanders. Your education isn't just about the gentle arts. While other girls of noble birth might focus solely on domestic stewardship, your classroom is the open air. Your lessons etched in the political maneuverings you overhear between grizzled veterans. You learn to read and write Amharic, a rare and significant skill for a woman of your time, giving you access to sacred texts and state documents. But more than that, you learn the language of power. You watch how your father commands loyalty, how he negotiates with rivals, and how respect is a currency far more valuable than gold. One of your most vivid early lessons is about clothing. You see how a finely woven shema, the traditional Ethiopian toga-like shawl, is draped differently on a warrior than on a priest. You notice the intricate TBB, the colorful, embroidered borders on the cloth, and learn that these are not just decorations. They are signals. They indicate rank, region, wealth, and even marital status. A man's status could be read from 100 paces away just by the quality of his cotton and the richness of the dye. This is your first inkling that what a person wears is a public declaration of who they are and where they stand. It's a lesson that seeps deep into your consciousness. You also learn a peculiar and fascinating truth about your culture. Beauty has a very specific, and sometimes painful, standard. You notice some of the older, most respected women have incredibly fine, delicate lines tattooed around their necks and gums. This practice, of tattooing the gums a dark blue or black, was considered the height of elegance and a sign of high status, a strange and intimate detail of beauty that few outsiders would ever know about. It's a reminder that every culture has its own unique, and sometimes surprising, definition of what it means to be beautiful. You file this observation away, another piece of the complex cultural puzzle you are slowly mastering. As you grow, so does your reputation. You are known not just for your noble birth, but for your sharp mind and almost unnerving perceptances. You can read a person's intentions in the flicker of their eyes or the slight hesitation in their voice. This, combined with your formal education, makes you a formidable young woman. You are being shaped, polished, and prepared not for a quiet life, but for a destiny tied to the very fate of Ethiopia itself. You are the sun, and your dawn is approaching. The political stage is being set, and you are about to make your entrance, armed with an education, a noble name, and the quiet, powerful knowledge that a well-chosen garment can be the most powerful armor of all. The world of your youth isn't just a classroom. It's a sprawling gymnasium for the mind. While you absorb the silent language of textiles, your formal education deepens, rooting you in the bedrock of Ethiopian power, faith and poetry. Your days are steeped in the traditions of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, an institution whose history is woven into the very soul of the nation. You don't just learn prayers. You study the Psalms of David, chanting them until their rhythm becomes a part of your own heartbeat. This isn't merely about devotion. In Ethiopia, the church is a political powerhouse, the keeper of history, and the moral compass of the kingdom. To understand the church is to understand the people's spirit. And you prove to be an exceptionally astute student. You learn Tuiani, a complex and beautiful form of poetry built on layers of meaning, the wax and gold. The wax is the obvious, surface meaning of the words, but the gold is the hidden, deeper truth, often a clever political or spiritual commentary. This training sharpens your mind to a razor's edge, teaching you to think in metaphors, to see the hidden message in every statement, and, most importantly, to craft your own words with the same deadly or delightful ambiguity. This love for layered meaning finds a home in another of your pastimes, a game called Ge Beta. You might know its more common name, non-cola. Use it for hours before a carved wooden board with 2 rows of pits, your fingers moving swiftly as you distribute stones, or teeter, from one cup to the next. To an outsider, it looks like a simple counting game, but you know better. Ge Beta is a microcosm of warfare and strategy. Each move is a calculation. You must anticipate your opponent's actions, sacrifice your own pieces to lure them into a trap, and know the perfect moment to strike and capture their stores. You aren't just playing a game, you're rehearsing for rule. The board is your kingdom, the stones your armies and resources. You learn patience, foresight, and the cool logic of conquest, all under the guise of a leisurely afternoon diversion. Your skill in this game becomes a quiet legend among your family and attendants. You don't just play, you dominate. Now, historians to this day are locked in a fascinating debate about the precise structure of your education. We know you were literate, deeply religious, and strategically brilliant, but was there a formal curriculum for a future empress? Did you have tutors who explicitly taught you military history and statecraft? Or were you simply a genius of observation, a sponge who absorbed every nuance of the powerful world you were born into? The records are frustratingly silent on the specifics, but whether by formal design or natural talent, you are being molded into something the court has rarely seen before. A woman whose intellect is considered as valuable as her bloodline. As you mature, you begin to apply these lessons to your own person. Your understanding of clothing evolves from passive observation to active experimentation. It starts small. You request a specific shade of indigo for the TBB on your shama, a richer, deeper blue that catches the light in a particular way. You learn to drape the fine cotton fabric not just for modesty, but for effect. A fold here to suggest humility, a sweep there to project authority. You begin to curate your appearance with the same strategic care you apply to the Ge Beta board. Your personal style becomes your first declaration of intent. While other noble women might simply wear the wealth of their family, you weigh your intelligence. Your adornments are chosen not just for their glitter, but for their symbolism. They silver cross, intricately worked, speaks of your piety. Heavy bracelets might signify your family's wealth, but you choose pieces that are known to come from a specific region, a subtle nod of solidarity to its ruler. You find you have little patience for the needlework itself, a common pastime for aristocratic women. The quiet, repetitive act of embroidery doesn't suit the quickness of your mind. You appreciate the result, the dazzling patterns that speak of status and skill, but you would rather be reading a historical text or composing a line of cutting QDNE poetry. This sets you apart. You are not content to be a passive symbol of beauty. You want to be the architect of your own image, the author of your own story. The whispers about you begin to change. They are no longer just about Taytu Betul, the pretty daughter of a powerful race. They are about Taytu Betul, the formidable mind, the poet, the strategist. The sun is rising higher in the sky, and its light is beginning to attract the attention of the most powerful players in the empire. Your childhood is ending, and the first moves of a much larger, much more dangerous game are about to be made on your behalf. The game of GE Beta you mastered as a girl now transitions from a wooden board to the sprawling, unpredictable map of Ethiopia. You have become a young woman of renown, and your hand in marriage is no longer a personal affair but a strategic asset, a key piece to be played in the great game of regional alliances. Your family understands your value. You are not just a bride. You are a bridge, a treaty, a potential truce. Your first marriage is a blur of political calculation. You are wedded to an officer of Emperor Adwa, a man whose reign is marked by a fierce, almost brutal, ambition to unify a fractured Ethiopia. The union is meant to tie your powerful family in the north to the Emperor's central authority. You do what is expected of you. You are a dutiful wife, observant and poised, but you are also learning. You watch the Emperor's court from the inside, seeing firsthand how his attempts at modernization and centralization are met with both admiration and fierce resistance. You see the fragility of power, how a single misstep or a perceived insult can unravel years of careful planning. This marriage, like many political alliances of the era, is not destined to last. Historical accounts of your early marriages are tangled and sometimes contradictory. It's a point of contention among scholars, just how many times you were married before your final, most famous union. Some sources say 2, some say 4, some even more. It reflects the chaotic, shifting political landscape of the time, where alliances were made and broken with dizzying speed. What is clear, however, is that each experience is a lesson. You are passed from one powerful hand to another, not as a victim, but as a student in the world's most ruthless finishing school. Your second significant marriage places you in an even more strategic position. You are wed to a ruler in the region of Wuchale, a critical buffer zone between the northern and southern power centers of the empire. Here, you are not just a wife. You are a de facto diplomat. You learn to navigate the complex web of local loyalties, religious divisions, and family feuds that define the region. You host dignitaries, mediate minor disputes, and build your own network of contacts. You are honing the skills that will one day make you an indispensable advisor. You learn that a well-placed gift, a carefully chosen word of praise, or a shared secret can be more effective than a company of soldiers. You are mastering the wax and gold of human interaction. During this time, you witness a particularly Ethiopian brand of political theater, the art of the feast. A great lord's power is measured not just by his army, but by his generosity. You help orchestrate massive banquets, or GIBR, where thousands of soldiers and followers are fed for days on end. The logistics are staggering. Mountains of injera, the spongy flatbread, are prepared. Rivers of Itege, the potent honey wine, are consumed, and the centerpiece, raw beef, is carved and served with fiery MIT meat as spice. A fascinating and, to outsiders, shocking custom, but you understand its purpose. It's a public display of wealth and stability. It tells everyone, I am so powerful that I can afford to feed you all. My stores are full. Follow me, and you will never go hungry. It's a primal, effective form of political communication, and you are at the center of it, ensuring everything runs smoothly, projecting an image of effortless abundance. With each marriage, your personal wealth and influence grow. You accumulate land, titles, and, most importantly, a deep, practical understanding of how the empire truly works. It's not a monolithic entity ruled from a single throne. It's a patchwork quilt of powerful regions, each with its own leader, its own army, its own interests. To rule Ethiopia, One must not command it, but convince it. You see how emperors rise and fall, not always on the battlefield, but in the subtle shifts of allegiance among these powerful regional lords. You are not yet a queen, but you are learning to think like one. Your name is now spoken with a new kind of respect in the courts and camps across the highlands. You are no longer just Taytu Betul, the daughter of a race. You are Taytu Betul, the shrewd player, the survivor, the woman who has seen the inner workings of power from multiple angles. You have been a piece in the game for long enough. Soon, you will start making your own moves. The board is set for your most important match yet. The political winds of Ethiopia shift once again. The current emperor's power is waning, and a new star is rising in the south, in the kingdom of Shiwa. His name is Menelik, and he is a man of immense charm, ambition, and a lineage that rivals your own. He, too, claims direct descent from Solomon and Sheba, a claim that gives him a powerful legitimacy in the eyes of the people. You've heard stories about him for years, tales of his daring escape from imperial prison as a young man, his strategic brilliance in consolidating his own kingdom, and his progressive, almost insatiable curiosity about the outside world. He collects foreign inventions, consults with European advisors, and dreams of a modern, unified Ethiopia that can stand on its own terms against the encroaching powers of Europe. His court is a hub of activity, a place of new ideas and old traditions clashing and combining in exciting ways. Your paths are destined to cross. The union is a political masterstroke, a merger of the two most powerful lineages and regions in the country. He represents the ascending south, here the established, aristocratic north. Together, you are a symbol of a united Ethiopia. But when you finally meet him, you realize this is more than just another political arrangement. There's a spark. Menelik is not like the other men you have been married to. He doesn't see you as just a political asset or a beautiful noblewoman. He sees your mind. He is captivated by your intelligence, your quick wit, and your deep understanding of the nation's complex political fabric. He listens to you. He asks for your opinion on matters of state, on appointments, on strategy. In a world where women, even high-born ones, were expected to be silent partners, Menelik treats you as an equal. The courtship, as it were, is a series of conversations, long discussions late into the night about history, theology, and the future of your people. You challenge his ideas. He challenges yours. You share your knowledge of the northern courts. He shares his vision for a modern army. It's a meeting of two formidable intellects, a partnership forged in mutual respect and a shared, fierce love for your country. For the first time, you feel like you are not just a player in someone else's game, but a co-architect of a grand new design. This is the foundation upon which your legendary partnership will be built. Historians have often romanticized this relationship, but even the most cynical accounts agree that the bond between you and Menelik was one of genuine intellectual and emotional connection, a rarity in the world of royal marriages. As you spend more time in his court in Shiwa, you notice the subtle differences in style and custom. The fashion is slightly different. The dialect has its own cadence. You adapt, of course, but you do not assimilate. You retain the distinctive markers of your northern heritage, a constant visual reminder of the powerful alliance you represent. You introduce him to the nuances of QE and poetry you mastered, teaching him to appreciate the wax and gold not just in verse, but in diplomacy. Deed, in turn, shows you his collection of European curiosities: a telephone, a phonograph, a modern rifle. You are both fascinated and wary. You see the potential of these tools, but you also sense the danger of the world they come from. One of the peculiar things you notice about Menelik is his fascination with dentistry. It's an odd, little-known hobby of his. He was apparently quite skilled and would often offer his services to members of his court, using modern European tools he had acquired. It was a strange, intimate, and disarming habit for a king, and it spoke to his endlessly curious and practical nature. Imagine a king who on one day is planning a military campaign, and the next is offering to pull your aching tooth. It's a wonderfully humanizing detail. This is the man you are binding your destiny to. A modernizer with ancient roots, a king with the hobbies of a commoner, a leader who sees in you not a consort, but a partner. The wedding in 1883 is a magnificent affair, a celebration that solidifies the most powerful alliance the empire has seen in generations. You are now the Queen of Siwa, but everyone knows this is just a stepping stone. Menelik is poised to become the Ing USA Noga Street, the King of Kings, the Emperor of all Ethiopia, and you will be by his side, not behind him. Your journey through the treacherous landscape of political marriages has led you here. You have found your king, your partner, your equal, the two of you, the sun from the north and the rising star from the south, are about to reshape the destiny of your nation. There in the ancient city of Axum crackles with an energy you haven't felt before. It's 1889, and the old emperor, Johann IV, has fallen in battle. The path is now clear for Menelik. The throne of the King of Kings is his to claim, but a coronation in Ethiopia isn't a simple ceremony of placing a crown on a head. It is a deeply sacred and symbolic event, a ritual bath in the waters of history and faith. Then for you, it is the moment of your ultimate transformation. You are about to become not just a queen consort, but an Adege, an empress, crowned and anointed in your own right, alongside your husband. This is a crucial distinction. You will not merely derive your power from him. You will have your own, divinely sanctioned authority. The ceremony is held at the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion, the most sacred place in all of Ethiopia, believed by the faithful to house the Ark of the Covenant. The weight of this history is palpable. You can feel the spirits of centuries of emperors and empresses in the cool stone of the church. The preparations are elaborate, steeped in ancient tradition. Your coronation robes are heavy, not just with gold, thread, and jewels, but with meaning. Every element has been carefully chosen by you. You have insisted on using textiles from different regions of the empire, weaving a story of unity into the very fabric of your garments. The deep crimson dye comes from one province, the intricate silver filigree from another, the fine spun cotton from a third. Your dress is a map of the nation you are about to rule. As you stand before the Abuna, the head of the Ethiopian church, the holy oil is warm on your forehead, your palms, your neck. It's a moment of profound spiritual significance. You are being consecrated, set apart for a sacred duty. You feel the heavy crown being placed on your head, its weight a physical manifestation of the responsibilities you are now accepting. You glance at Menelik, his face serene and resolute, and you see the same look in his eyes, a mixture of awe and determination. You are no longer just Taytu and Menelik. You are the twin pillars of the empire, one of the fascinating traditions of the Ethiopian coronation. A detail often lost in broader historical accounts is the symbolic renaming. Often, an emperor would take a throne name upon his coronation to signify his new identity in the dawn of a new era. Menelik, however, chose to keep his birth name, a powerful statement in itself. It was a signal that he was not breaking from his past but building upon it, that the king of Shiwa was now the emperor of Ethiopia. You, too, retain your name, Taytu, the sun, a name that now feels more like a prophecy than a simple title. After the sacred rituals, the public celebrations begin. A great GIBR, or feast, is held, one that will be talked about for years. It's the feast to end all feasts, a spectacular display of the new imperial power. Tens of thousands of people, soldiers, nobles, priests, and common folk are fed. You and Menelik preside over it all, not from a distant, elevated platform, but moving amongst the crowds, sharing food, receiving blessings. This is the Ethiopian way. Power is not remote. It is personal and reciprocal. Your presence, your accessibility, your generosity, these are the things that build loyalty. But, even in this moment of triumph, your mind is working. You are acutely aware of the challenges ahead. The regional lords who have pledged allegiance are watching you, testing you. The European powers, particularly Italy, are circling like vultures, their friendship a thin veil for their colonial ambitions. Your coronation is not an end. It is the beginning of the real fight. The power you have just been granted is not a guarantee of security. It is a tool, and you know you will have to use it with all the skill and cunning you possess. As the celebrations wind down and you retire to your new quarters, the weight of the crown is replaced by the weight of the future. You are now the Empress of one of the only free nations left in Africa. The responsibility is immense. You look at your reflection, garbed in the splendor of your new station. You see the Empress, but you also see the girl who mastered Beta, the young woman who survived the treacherous currents of political marriage, the poet who understands the power of hidden meanings. Every experience has led you to this point. The game has changed. The stakes are higher than ever before. Now, you are not just playing for regional power, but for the very soul of your nation, and your reign as the Sun Queen. The Empress Taytu has just begun. With your new titles firmly established, the first order of business is to create a worthy center for your empire. Menelik's old capital in the hills of Shiwa is functional, but it lacks the grandeur and strategic location needed for the capital of a modernizing Ethiopia. The court is still semi-nomadic, following a long-standing tradition of moving with the seasons and military needs. But you and Menelik know that to project stability and deal with the increasingly present foreign powers, you need a fixed, permanent heart for the nation. You need a city. The spot is chosen on the slopes of the N2 mountains. At first, it's little more than a collection of tents and temporary structures, Menelik's military camp. But you have a vision. One day, while walking the hills, you are drawn to a valley blessed with natural hot springs, known to the locals for their healing properties. The air is clear, the landscape beautiful. It is here, you declare, that the new capital will be built. You give it its name, Addis Ababa, New Flower. It is a name full of hope and promise, a fresh start. You are not just naming a city, you are planting a garden that you intend to cultivate into the symbol of a new Ethiopia. You become the driving force behind the city's early development. While Menelik is often away on campaigns or dealing with the grand strategies of state, you are the one on the ground, overseeing the transformation of a rural landscape into a capital. You direct the layout of the city, not in a rigid, grid-like European style, but in a more organic, Ethiopian way. The GEBI, the Imperial Palace Complex, is to be built on the highest hill, a commanding presence overlooking the entire valley. Radiating out from it are the plots of land you grant to the most important nobles, the Araces, ensuring that the power structure of the empire is physically mapped onto its new capital. Each noble builds their own compound, creating a city of fortified family homesteads rather than anonymous streets. Your influence is most deeply felt in the aesthetic you establish for the new palace. You have no interest in mimicking the cold, formal styles you've seen in photographs from Europe. You want the palace to be grand, but distinctly Ethiopian. You champion the use of local materials, wood, stone, and mud and wattle construction, but on a scale never before seen. The and rather quirky innovation you supported was the introduction of eucalyptus trees. Menelik had them imported from Australia, and you quickly saw their potential. These fast-growing trees provided a desperately needed source of timber for construction and firewood in the largely deforested highlands around the new city. Today, the scent of eucalyptus is one of Addis Ababa's defining characteristics, a fragrant legacy of your practical and forward-thinking vision. This is where your sartorial politics begin to take center stage. The new court at Addis Ababa becomes your canvas. As nobles from all over the empire flock to the capital to be near the center of power, they bring their regional styles with them. You see this not as a chaotic mess, but as an opportunity. You begin to host grand receptions on social events, and your own attire sets the tone. You wear the finest, most brilliantly white shema, made from cotton so sheer it is almost translucent, a sign of the highest status. The TBB, the embroidered border, on your garments is wider and more intricate than anyone else's, a clear and undeniable statement of your position as Empress. You popularized certain color combinations and weaving techniques, making them the fashion of the court. To be in favor with the Empress, one had to be in step with her style. A fascinating debate among historians is whether your fashion leadership was a conscious political strategy from the very beginning, or a natural extension of your personal taste that you later realized was a powerful tool. Did you sit down and think, I will use clothing to unify the court? Or did you simply wear what you loved, and your immense influence did the rest? The truth is likely somewhere in between. What started as personal expression became a formidable instrument of soft power. You created a new visual language of loyalty by adopting the styles you championed. The notoriously independent regional lords were, in a way, pledging their allegiance, not just to the throne, but to your vision of a unified Ethiopian culture. Your court became a fashion spectacle, but it was a spectacle with a deadly serious purpose. The new flower you were cultivating needed a distinct, unified, and beautiful identity, and you are creating it, one silken thread at a time. As your new capital begins to blossom, a shadow stretches from across the Red Sea. Italy, a nation new to the colonial game and desperate to catch up with Britain and France, has its eyes fixed on the Horn of Africa. They see Ethiopia not as an ancient Christian kingdom with a proud history, but as a prize, a key piece in their dream of a new Roman Empire. They have already established a foothold in Eritrea on the coast, and now they are looking inland. Their approach is subtle. At first, they don't arrive with a full-scale invasion force, but with diplomats bearing gifts and a seemingly generous offer of friendship and cooperation. The Treaty of Wuchale hail. The treaty arrives in 1889. Shortly after your coronation, the Italian envoy, Count Pietro Antonelli, presents it to Menelik with all the pomp and ceremony he can muster. He speaks of mutual respect, of trade, of a modern partnership. The treaty offers Ethiopia a substantial loan, access to European alms, and formal recognition of Menelik as emperor. On the surface, it seems like a good deal. Menelik, ever the modernizer, is tempted. He sees the weapons and the money as tools to strengthen his empire and defend it against other rivals. He trusts Antonelli, with whom he has built a friendly rapport. You are present at these meetings, a silent, observant figure at your husband's side. You listen to the flowery language of the Italian diplomats, your mind, trained in the art of wax and gold, sifting through every word. You do not trust them. Your instincts, honed by years of navigating treacherous political waters, are screaming that something is wrong. You watch Count Antonelli's eyes, the slight tightness in his smile. It's a look you've seen before in ambitious men who believe they are cleverer than everyone else in the room. You feel a deep-seated suspicion, a protective and fierce sense of alarm that the Europeans dismiss as feminine emotion, but which you know to be a finely tuned political instrument. You express your doubts to Menelik in private. Why would they give us so much for so little? You ask, what is the gold beneath this wax? Menelik, ever optimistic and keen to be seen as a modern, trusting ruler, reassures you. He believes in the power of personal relationships and thinks his bond with Antonelli is genuine. He signs the treaty. 2 versions are prepared. One in Amharic, the official language of your court, and one in Italian. This is standard practice for international agreements. The copies are signed, the seals are affixed, and the Italians leave, celebrating what they believe is a major diplomatic victory. The loan money arrives, as do some of the promised weapons. For a while, it seems your fears were unfounded. The court settles back into its rhythm. You continue to oversee the development of Addis Ababa, your focus on building a strong, internal foundation for the empire. You encourage local weavers to produce finer and more intricate textiles, a small act of economic nationalism that feels more important to you than ever. You notice the increasing presence of European advisors and missionaries in the capital. You treat them with polite, formal courtesy, but you keep them at arm's length. You observe how they interact with your people, their subtle air of superiority, their assumption that the European way is the only way. It only deepens your mistrust. A small, almost comical detail from this period is the European obsession with mapping. Foreign explorers and scientific expeditions would arrive, asking for permission to map the Ethiopian interior. A strange hobby, you think, for men to be so interested in drawing mountains and rivers, but you quickly realize it's not a hobby. These maps are for military planning. They are blueprints for invasion. This seemingly innocent scientific pursuit is, in fact, espionage. It's another piece of evidence you file away. The Europeans are not here as friends. They are here as surveyors, measuring your nation for a coffin. The ink on the Treaty of W, you see hail, is dry, but you have a chilling premonition that it is a document signed in disappearing ink, and that its true meaning has yet to be revealed. You decide to find out for yourself what the Italians have really written. You're uneasy about the Treaty of W, you see hail solidifies into coal. Hard certainty. The key lies in the two versions, the one in Amharic that Menelik signed, and the one in Italian that Count Antonelli took back to Rome. You have a trusted Ethiopian scholar who is fluent in Italian, a man you know to be loyal to you and the crown. Procure a copy of the Italian text and translate it. Use it with him, not as an empress receiving a report, but as a student poring over a difficult text. You make him read it to you, word for word, and then translate it again, ensuring no nuance is lost. And then you see it. The dagger hidden in the diplomatic prose. It's in Article 17, in the Amharic version, the one your husband read and signed. Article 17 states that the Emperor of Ethiopia can use the good offices of the Italian government to conduct his foreign affairs with other European nations. The key word is can. It's optional. It's an offer of assistance, a convenience. Menelik saw it as a helpful diplomatic channel. Nothing more, but in the Italian version, the meaning is twisted by a single, devastating verb. It states that the Emperor of Ethiopia must conduct all his foreign affairs through the Italian government. Can has become must, optional has become obligatory. The wax was an offer of friendship. The gold is a declaration of subservience. You feel a hot flash of fury, followed by a chilling clarity. This isn't a misunderstanding. It's not a translation error. This is a deliberate, calculated deception. The Italians have tricked Menelik. They are using this piece of paper to declare to the other European powers that Ethiopia is now an Italian protectorate, a territory under their control. They have tried to colonize your nation with a comma and a verb. Your suspicion was not just intuition. It was a prophecy. You immediately take your findings to Menelik. You lay the two translations side by side. You point to the fatal discrepancy. You watch his face change as the full weight of the deception settles upon him. His optimism shatters, replaced by the stony anger of a king who has been played for a fool. His trust in Antonelli, in the good faith of European diplomacy, evaporates in an instant. It is a pivotal moment in your relationship and in the history of your country. In that moment, he sees that your womanly suspicion was, in fact, keen political insight. Your role as his most trusted advisor is cemented, not in ceremony, but in this crisis. The debate among historians has long been whether this was a genuine, albeit convenient, mistranslation or deliberate act of diplomatic fraud. The consensus among most modern scholars, however, leans heavily toward intentional deception. The context of the scramble for Africa and Italy's desperate colonial ambitions makes it highly unlikely to have been an innocent mistake. The Italians knew exactly what they were doing. They were using the conventions of European law to entrap a nation that played by different rules. Your mind, trained in the poetic art of Cunning, immediately grasps the insult in its entirety. They thought you were simple. They thought you were illiterate savages who wouldn't notice the difference. They mistook your ancient, complex culture for ignorance, and it is this intellectual arrogance, this deep-seated racism, that fuels your anger most of all. They have not just tried to steal your sovereignty, they have insulted your intelligence. No, a strange little fact from this era is the proliferation of official seals. In a court where not everyone was literate, the martyr, or official seal, of a ruler or noble was their legally binding signature. These seals were often intricate, beautiful objects, carved from brass or silver. You have your own seal, distinct from Menelik S, which you use on official documents under your authority. The integrity of a seal was paramount. For the Italians to have affixed their seal to a document whose meaning was duplicitous was a profound violation of diplomatic and ethical norms, both European and Ethiopian. It was a forgery of intent. The discovery of the fraud in Article 17 changes everything. The friendly facade is dropped. The game is no longer one of subtle influence or cultural exchange. It is now a direct confrontation. The Italians have shown their hand, and you know you must prepare for the inevitable conflict. The court is in an uproar. Some nobles advise caution, fearing Italy's military might. Others bay for blood. You and Menelik are united. There can be no compromise on sovereignty. The treaty, in its current form, is an abomination. The question is not if you will defy Italy, but how. Your first move is to start a quiet, calculated campaign of your own, one that doesn't require guns or soldiers. It will be a war of symbols, and your palace will be the first battleground. The deception of the treaty has lit a fire in you. The Italians sought to wrap your empire in paper chains, so you will answer them with the power of woven thread. You realize that the battle ahead is not just a military one. It's a battle for identity. The Europeans bring with them not just guns and treaties, but their culture, their religion, their clothing. They believe their way of life is superior, the universal standard to which all other societies must aspire. You have seen it in the way their women dress, corsted and constrained, and in the dismissive way they look at your people's traditional garments. You decide, with a cold and deliberate resolve, that your wardrobe and the fashion of your court will become a fortress against this cultural invasion. It will be your manifesto. Your first act is a public and pointed rejection of all things European. You begin to systematically purge for fabrics and styles from your personal wardrobe. The silks and velvets that might have been gifted by diplomats are put away. You announce that you will only wear garments made entirely in Ethiopia, from cotton grown in Ethiopian soil, spun by Ethiopian hands, and woven on Ethiopian looms. This is a radical and powerful statement. In an age where elites around the world were clamoring for European luxury goods as a sign of modernity and status, you turn your back on them completely. You declare, through your actions, that true prestige lies not in imitating the West, but in celebrating your own heritage. This decision sends a shockwave through the court at Addis Ababa. The noble women, who had been starting to experiment with European fabrics and small accessories to appear sophisticated, quickly take notice. The Empress is wearing only traditional dress. To be in her favor, to show loyalty, they must do the same. You don't issue a formal decree. You don't have to. Your influence is so immense that your personal choice becomes an unwritten law. The demand for locally made textiles skyrockets. You have weaponized fashion. Every woman at court who swaps a European lace shawl for a hand-woven shama is casting a vote of confidence in you and a vote of no confidence in the Italians. You become a curator of national pride. You seek out the most skilled weavers from across the empire, bringing them to the capital and commissioning their work. You pay them handsomely, elevating their status from simple artisans to national treasures. You take a particular interest in the TBB, the decorative borders. You encourage the weavers to be more ambitious than ever, to create wider, more complex, and more colorful patterns. These borders become a canvas for regional identity. A TBB from Tigray might feature geometric patterns and stark colors, while one from Goji might have more flowing, organic motifs. By wearing and promoting these different styles, you are showcasing the rich diversity of your empire while binding it all together under a single, unifying aesthetic of Ethiopian made. A fascinating and little-known aspect of Ethiopian weaving is the secret language of the patterns themselves. For centuries, weavers, almost exclusively men in the highlands, had embedded subtle meanings into their designs. Certain motifs could signify a prayer for protection, a celebration of a harvest, or even a quiet political protest. While academic debate continues on how widespread and codified this language was, It's clear that the patterns were more than just decoration. You, with your love for waxen gold, would have understood this implicitly. You are not just commissioning cloth. You are commissioning stories, prayers, and declarations of defiance that the Italians and other foreigners can see but never truly read. You begin to use your wardrobe to send specific political messages. For major state occasions, you wear a stark white shema, a symbol of purity, piety, and righteous authority. The sheer whiteness of the fine cotton is itself a status symbol, as producing and maintaining such a garment without modern laundry facilities was incredibly difficult, requiring immense resources. When meeting with priests and religious figures, your attire is more modest, signaling your deference to the church. When reviewing troops with Menelik, you might wear a darker, more practical garment, but one still adorned with a TBB that flashes with patriotic colors. You are dressing for the role you are playing each day. And your main role has now become the defender of Ethiopian culture. Your manifesto is clear. Ethiopia is not a blank slate for Europe to write its future upon. It is an ancient civilization with its own profound beauty, its own sophisticated art, and its own unshakable pride. You are transforming the act of getting dressed from a personal routine into a political ritual. Every morning, when you wrap yourself in the fine, hand-woven cotton of your homeland, you are putting on your armor for the day's battles. The fight against Italy has begun, and you are leading the charge from your closet. Let's take a moment and get ready with you. It's a significant day at the GEB, the Imperial Palace. A delegation of nobles from a powerful but notoriously fickle region is arriving, and you need to project an image of unshakable authority, deep piety, and immense wealth, all without saying a word. Your entire ensemble is a carefully constructed political text, and we're going to read it from the inside out. It begins not with a glamorous gown, but with the QMS. This is your foundational garment, a simple, long-sleeved cotton dress that reaches your ankles. For most women, this would be made of sturdy, everyday cotton, but you are the Empress. Your QMS is made of a fabric so fine and soft it feels like a cloud against your skin. It's pure white, a symbol of purity that is also a subtle boast about the number of servants required to keep it so pristine. The neckline and cuffs are adorned with delicate, hand-stitched embroidery, a private luxury. This is the base layer, the personal reminder of your status before any of the public-facing garments are even touched. Next comes the star of the show, the shema. This is not just a shawl. It's a versatile to love communication. It's a single, enormous piece of cotton cloth, typically 9 or 10 feet long, woven in 2 layers for opacity but with the gossamer thin quality of the finest muslin. The one you choose today is dazzlingly white, woven in the best workshops of Gondar, a region famed for its weavers. The fabric itself is a message. We can produce this level of quality ourselves. We need nothing from you. Now for the most important part, the TBB. This is the wide, colorful, woven border that runs along the edge of the shema. Today, you've chosen one that is exceptionally complex. It features shimmering gold thread, a material reserved almost exclusively for the imperial family and the highest church officials. The gold thread is not just for show. It catches the sunlight as you move, creating a subtle, divine aura. The patterns woven into the TBB are geometric, echoing the designs found in ancient Aksumite art, a direct visual link to the glorious, independent history of your ancestors. You are literally wrapping yourself in the legacy of a sovereign Ethiopia. The sheer width of the TBB, perhaps a foot wide, is a declaration of your supreme rank. No one else at court would dare to have a border so prominent. Draping the shema is an art form. Your attendants wrap it around you, the fabric falling in soft, elegant folds. It can be worn loosely over the shoulders, or for more formal or pious occasions, it can be pulled up to cover the head and veil the lower face, leaving only your eyes visible. Today, you choose a style that is both regal and modest. It covers your hair, a sign of respectability and piety that will resonate with the conservative nobles, but it leaves your face open, a sign of confidence and directness. Every fold is deliberate, designed to create a silhouette that is both graceful and imposing. Then comes the jewelry. You don't pile it on like a European monarch. Ethiopian taste is more refined. You select a few magnificent pieces, they large, intricate silver cross, a masterpiece of filigree, is worn on a chain around your neck. It speaks of your devotion to the Orthodox faith, the bedrock of your empire. Your earrings are heavy gold, not glittering with gems, but worked with patterns that have been used for centuries. And on your wrists, you wear not bracelets, but massive cuffs of ivory and silver. Each piece is a statement, not of fleeting fashion, but of enduring power and ancient tradition. Finally, a curious and often misunderstood detail. Your feet. While you have footwear, often simple leather sandals, you frequently choose to go barefoot within the palace grounds, especially in more private or ceremonial settings. To the Europeans, this was a sign of being primitive. To you, it is a sign of being grounded, of being connected to the holy soil of your land. It's a statement of humility before God, even as you project immense power to man. It's a cultural nuance they could never grasp. As you stand, fully dressed, you are a living symbol of everything you are fighting for. Your whiteness speaks of righteousness. Your gold speaks of wealth. Your silver cross speaks of faith. Your intricate TBB speaks of a complex, autistic heritage. And the fact that it is all 100% Ethiopian-made is the final, unanswerable argument against the Italians and their claims of superiority. You haven't uttered a single word, but you have already delivered a powerful sermon on national pride. Now, you are ready to receive the delegation. Your campaign for national identity goes beyond your own wardrobe and the fashions of the court. You understand that a truly independent nation cannot just have cultural pride. It needs economic strength. The flood of European imports, from cheap textiles to manufactured goods, poses a long-term threat to Ethiopia's self-sufficiency. You see how it creates dependency and siphons wealth out of the country. So, you embark on one of your most practical and enduring projects, the revitalization and protection of the domestic textile industry. This isn't just about making beautiful clothes. It's about building a sustainable, internal economy that can resist foreign domination. Your strategy is twofold. First, you use your immense influence as a trendsetter to create demand. As we've seen, by exclusively wearing Ethiopian-made garments, you make them the most desirable items in the empire. Every noble, every courtier, every person of means now wants the finest, whitest sham muslin, the most intricate TBBS. This creates a massive, guaranteed market for local weavers, spinners, and cotton farmers. You turn patriotism into a powerful economic engine. The looms in Gondar and Kober and other weaving centers begin to work overtime to meet the new demand from the capital. Second, you become a direct patron of the arts. You don't just inspire the market, you invest in it. You use your personal wealth, which is considerable, thanks to your family lands and the shrewd management you've practiced for decades, to commission the best weavers directly. You challenge them to push their skills to new limits, to experiment with new dyes made from local plants and minerals, and to create designs of unparalleled complexity. This patronage does more than just support individual artisans. It elevates the entire craft. Weaving becomes a highly respected and lucrative profession, attracting talented young men who might otherwise have sought a career as a soldier or a priest. A fascinating, and somewhat debated, aspect of this initiative is how much direct control you exerted over the means of production. Some historical accounts suggest you established what were essentially imperial workshops, bringing weavers into the palace grounds to work under your direct supervision. Other historians argue your influence was less direct, more a matter of patronage and setting trends. The truth likely lies somewhere in the middle. You were a micromanager when it came to things you cared about, and you cared deeply about this. It's easy to imagine you personally inspecting looms, suggesting color palettes, and rejecting cloth that didn't meet your impossibly high standards. One of the less glamorous but crucial parts of this endeavor is supporting the entire supply chain. It's not just about the weavers. It's about the people who grow the cotton, You encourage the cultivation of high-quality, long-staple cotton, which produces the softest, strongest thread. You ensure that the women who spun this cotton into thread are laborious, time-consuming tasks done with a simple hand spindle are also valued and paid fairly for their work. You understand that the final, glorious Shema is the product of many hands, from the farmer in the field to the spinner in her hut to the weaver at his loom. By strengthening each link in this chain, you are strengthening the fabric of the nation itself. This economic nationalism has a direct impact on the Italians. They had hoped to flood the Ethiopian market with their own cheap textiles, creating economic dependency as a prelude to political control. It was a standard colonial tactic used by European powers across the globe, but you preempted them. Why would any self-respecting Ethiopian noblewoman wear a coarse, machine-made Italian fabric when the Empress herself was showcasing the superior beauty and quality of hand-woven local cloth? You beat them at their own game, not with tariffs or trade wars, but with superior aesthetics and a powerful appeal to national pride. Your project is a stunning success. The Ethiopian textile industry, which had been facing pressure from cheap imports, not only survives but thrives, reaching new heights of artistic achievement. You have helped preserve a vital part of your culture's heritage and secured a crucial sector of its economy. You have proven that a commitment to tradition is not an obstacle to progress but can be a source of strength. You've woven together economics, culture, and politics into a single, beautiful, and resilient tapestry. The nation you are building is becoming stronger, more confident, and more self-reliant, readying itself for the storm you know is fast approaching. The imperial court at Addis Ababa becomes a theater for your silent, sartorial war. The foreign diplomats and envoys, accustomed to being the most important and best-dressed people in any room, now find themselves in a world where their rules of fashion and status no longer apply. You orchestrate this with masterful subtlety. Diplomatic receptions, which were once dense and formal affairs, are transformed into dazzling showcases of Ethiopian culture, designed to awe, intimidate, and assert your absolute sovereignty. Imagine this scene. A European ambassador arrives at the GEB for an audience. He is dressed in his finest formal attire. A dark woolen suit, a stiffly starched collar, perhaps a sash and medals. In London, Paris, or Rome, he would look imposing. But here, in your court, he would look drab. He steps into a hall filled with Ethiopian nobles, all robed in brilliant white chamas. The air shimmers with the reflection of light of hundreds of garments. The room is a sea of white, punctuated by the vibrant, jewel-toned colors of the TBB borders. The Europeans, in their dark, heavy walls, look like crows in a field of egrets. They appear hot, constricted, and utterly out of place. This is not an accident. It is psychological stagecraft, and you are the director. You and Menelik preside over these events from a raised platform. Seated on intricately carved thrones, Menelik is regal in his own right, but all eyes are drawn to you. Your garments are always the purest white, your TBB the most magnificent, your jewelry the most historic. You don't have to say a word. Your very presence is a lesson in power. You exude an aura of serene, unshakable confidence that the foreigners find both captivating and deeply unsettling. They have come to civilize a primitive nation, and instead, they find a court culture more sophisticated and visually impressive than their own. You use these events to school them in Ethiopian etiquette. For instance, the act of bowing. In Europe, one might offer a slight nod or a shallow bow to a monarch. In your court, the traditions are different, requiring a deeper show of respect. You and Menelik never bow to the foreigners, a subtle but clear assertion of your superior rank. You expect them to follow your customs in your court. Some of them resist, finding it demeaning. Their stiffness and reluctance only make them look foolish and disrespectful to the Ethiopian nobles who are watching every interaction. A particularly effective tool in your arsenal is the Etege. At every reception, this powerful honey wine flows freely. It's a symbol of Ethiopian hospitality and generosity. Served in small, flask-like glass vessels called biril, it is deceptively smooth and sweet. but it packs a serious punch. The foreign diplomats, attempting to be good guests, often indulge a little too freely. You, of course, drink it with practiced moderation. It's a small thing, but watching a flustered, slightly tipsy European envoy try to negotiate complex diplomatic points while you remain perfectly composed gives you a distinct advantage. Historians still debate whether you consciously used Etege as a diplomatic tool, but given your strategic mind, it's hard to believe you were unaware of its disarming effects. One of the most powerful ways you assert cultural dominance is through language. While Menelik is curious about foreign languages and employs translators, you conduct your business almost exclusively in Amharic. You force the diplomats to come to you on your terms, to speak through interpreters. This controls the flow of conversation and places a barrier between you and them. It denies them the easy familiarity they are used to. You make it clear that you are the Empress of Ethiopia, and if they wish to speak with you, they will do so in the language of your empire. It is a constant reminder that they are the visitors, the outsiders. Through these carefully managed encounters, you are systematically dismantling the colonial mindset. The core belief of the colonizer is their own inherent superiority, but they cannot feel superior when they are consistently being outmaneuvered, outshone, and made to feel culturally clumsy. You are not just rejecting their culture, you are demonstrating the strength and vitality of your own. You are winning a war of perception without firing a single shot. The diplomats write letters back to their home countries, and their reports are filled with a grudging respect and a deep sense of confusion. They came to deal with a tribal chief and his wife. They found a king and an empress presiding over a court that dripped with ancient authority and modern defiance. The ground is being prepared. When the real war comes, your enemies will already be off balance, their confidence shaken by a woman who fights with silk and silver. Your silent war of symbols occasionally breaks into open verbal skirmishes. One such incident becomes a legendary story, a perfect encapsulation of your wit, your pride, and your absolute refusal to be patronized. The tale of the barefoot queen, as it would be spun by Europeans, becomes a moment of triumph for you. The scene is another diplomatic reception in Addis Ababa. A European envoy, new to your court and brimming with the casual arrogance of his station, is making conversation. He looks at you, seated on your throne, the picture of regal authority. He notices, as many foreigners did, that you are not wearing shoes within the palace. To his mind, this confirms all his prejudices about African backwardness. He sees it not as a cultural choice, but as a lack of sophistication. Thinking he is making a charmingly modern and helpful suggestion, he leans in and says, with a condescending smile, "Your Majesty, with all the dust and dirt here, you should really wear shoes and stockings. We could have some scent from my country for you." The air in the room freezes. The Ethiopian nobles within earshot hold their breath, their eyes flashing with anger at the insult. The envoy is oblivious. He thinks he is offering a gift, a small piece of European progress. He has no idea he has just committed a monumental diplomatic blunder. He has insulted your person, your palace, and your entire way of life in a single, smug sentence. You do not raise your voice. You do not show a flash of anger. You fix him with a calm, level gaze that seems to look right through him. You let the silence hang in the air for a long moment, making him feel the full weight of his foolishness. Then, you lean forward slightly and reply in Amharic, your voice clear and carrying through the hall. Your translator delivers the message in Italian, and your words hit the envoy like a physical blow. "I am the Empress of Ethiopia," you say, your voice dripping with cold fire. "My land is not dirt. It is holy ground. I walk on it barefoot to feel its sanctity. Perhaps you should take off your shoes, so you can finally understand where you are standing." Then you turn to one of your attendants and add, loud enough for all to hear, "And please, tell this man that his mother must not have raised him properly, for he has forgotten his manners in the house of a queen." The comeback is devastating. It is a masterclass in the art of Cunning. The wax is a simple rebuke, but the gold is a multi-layered counterattack. You have reframed his insult about dirt into a powerful statement about your connection to your land. You have contrasted your piety with his ignorance. You have asserted your superior rank and right to define your own customs. And to top it all off, you have delivered a cutting, personal insult to his own upbringing, a move that stuns the European and delights your court. The Ethiopian nobles can barely contain their joy. You can hear whispers and stifled laughter ripple through the hall. The envoy's face turns a deep shade of crimson. He has been utterly, completely, and publicly humiliated. This story spreads like wildfire. It becomes a favorite tale told in the markets of Addis Ababa and the camps of your soldiers. It crystallizes your image as the fierce protector of Ethiopian dignity. You are not just a remote, silent empress. You are a warrior with a sharp tongue, ready to defend your nation's honor at a moment's notice. The historical accuracy of the exact wording is, of course, debated by scholars. Like many such legendary anecdotes, it has likely been polished and embellished over the years. Did you really insult his mother? Did the exchange happen exactly as told? It's difficult to say for certain, but the core of the story, your witty and powerful rebuttal to a condescending European, is widely accepted as true to your character. It captures the essence of your defiance. This incident is more than just a clever retort. It's a turning point in your public persona. Before, your resistance was quiet and symbolic. Now, it is loud and explicit. You are signaling to the Italians and the world that you will not be cowed. You will not be civilized, and you will not tolerate disrespect. The time for subtle messages woven into cloth is passing. The time for sharp words, and perhaps sharper steel, is drawing near. You have made it clear that any attempt to treat Ethiopia as a lesser nation will be met with a resistance as fierce and intelligent as its empress. The time for games, both sartorial and verbal, is over. The discovery of the deception in Article 17 has been festering for years. You and Menelik have sent letters to the Italian king, pointing out the discrepancy, hoping for a diplomatic resolution. You have even sent a letter to Queen Victoria of Britain, trying to use other European powers to mediate, but Italy is intransigent. They publicly declared Ethiopia as their protectorate to the rest of Europe, and to back down now would be a national humiliation. They refuse to acknowledge the fraud, insisting that the Italian version of the treaty is the only valid one. The diplomatic channels are exhausted. The situation has reached a breaking point. A council of the most powerful nobles and military leaders in the empire is convened at the Grand Palace in Addis Ababa. The mood is heavy with consequence. Everyone in the room knows that the decision made today will lead to war with a modern European army. The cautious faction, led by some of the older nobles, argues for prudence. They have seen the power of European weaponry. They fear a direct confrontation will lead to ruin. Let us negotiate. They say, let us find a compromise. A bad treaty is better than a lost war. They paint a grim picture of Italian machine guns and cannons mowing down Ethiopian soldiers armed with spears and old rifles. Then, you speak. You rise from your seat beside Menelik, and a hush falls over the assembly. All eyes are on you. You have spent years building your authority, cultivating your image as the conscience of Ethiopia. This is the moment you cash in that political and moral capital. Your voice is not loud, but it resonates with an unwavering conviction that cuts through the fear and doubt in the room. You methodically dismantle the arguments for caution. You speak of national honor, a concept every warrior in the room understands. What is the point of an empire without sovereignty? You ask. What is the point of a crown if we must bow to a foreign power to wear it? You appeal to their faith, framing the conflict not as a political dispute, but as a holy war to defend a Christian nation against foreign invaders. You remind them of their ancestors, of the long line of Ethiopian kings who fought and died for the independence of their land. Then, you deliver the final, decisive argument. You hold up a copy of the treaty. This piece of paper, you declare, is a leash. They want to lead us around like a dog. I am a woman. I do not like war, but I would rather die in battle than live in chains. And then, in a moment of pure political theater, you publicly and passionately urge Menelik tear up the treaty. Let us steer this document that seeks to enslave us. Let us show the Italians the true nature of Ethiopian resolve. Your words electrify the council. The wavering nobles are shamed into silence. The hawkish commanders roar their approval. Your fierce determination swings the mood of the entire assembly. You have given them the moral clarity and the courage they needed. It's a point of some historical debate how much of the final decision was yours alone. Menelik was no coward, and he had his own deep sense of honor. He was already leaning towards defiance, but most accounts agree that your passionate, uncompromising stance was the decisive factor that united the court and silenced all opposition. You were the catalyst, the voice that articulated the nation's deepest feelings. Following the council, Menelik officially renounces the Treaty of Wuchale in 1893. He sends a letter to Italy and the other European powers declaring it null and void. He uses the money from the Italian loan, the very money meant to entrap him to purchase modern weapons from France and Russia, Italy's rivals. The irony is delicious. The trap is backfired. The renunciation of the treaty is a formal declaration of war. Italy is furious. Their national honor has been slighted by an uncivilized African nation. They begin to amass a large, modern army in their coastal colony of Eritrea, preparing for a full-scale invasion to crush Ethiopian resistance and impose their authority by force. You, too, begin to prepare, but your preparations are not just military. You understand that this war will be won not just by soldiers, but by the will of the people. You compose patriotic poems and songs that are sung by the troops. You meet with the wives of nobles, urging them to prepare supplies and medical provisions. You turn the entire nation into a war machine, fueled by the righteous anger you have so carefully stoked. A peculiar but vital part of the preparation involves food. You oversee the preparation of vast quantities of dabokolo, a type of crunchy, roasted bread snack. It's lightweight, nutritious, and keeps for a long time, making it the perfect ration for soldiers on the march. You are thinking about logistics, about the small details that win wars. Just as much as the grand strategy, the die is cast. The invasion is coming, and you are ready for them. The Italian invasion begins. General Baradieri, the Italian commander, leads a technologically superior army out of Eritrea and into the northern Ethiopian province of Tigray. He is supremely confident, buoyed by a racist conviction that his European troops will make short work of the native army. He expects a quick, decisive victory that will restore Italian honor and secure Ethiopia as a jewel in their colonial crown. He has no idea who he is up against. In Addis Ababa, the call to arms, the Kiltet, goes out. It's a tradition that reaches back into the mists of Ethiopian history. Drummers take to the hills around the capital, beating out a rhythm that echoes through the valleys. The message is simple and stark. Your country needs you. Mobilize from every corner of the empire. The great lords, the Araces, answer the call. They gather their armies, vast columns of warriors, and begin the long march towards the north. It is a sight to behold, a river of humanity flowing across the rugged landscape, a sight not seen in a generation. An army of over 100 Zorro men is assembling, a force far larger than the Italians could have ever anticipated. You and Menelik decide on a bold and unprecedented course of action. You will not remain in the capital, safe and distant from the fighting. You will march with the army. This is a powerful statement. You are not just sending your people to war. You are going with them. Menelik will be the commander-in-chief, and you will be the heart of the campaign. Your presence is a massive morale boost. You are the Empress, the Sun Queen, the living symbol of the nation they are fighting to defend. To see you sharing the hardships of the march, sleeping in a tent, eating the same food as them, transforms the campaign from a mere military operation into a sacred pilgrimage. The journey north is arduous. It's a trek of hundreds of miles over mountains and through deserts. The logistics are a nightmare. Feeding and supplying such a massive force is a monumental challenge. This is where your preparations pay off. The stockpiles of double cola and other dried foods you organized are essential. But your role is far more than just a quartermaster. You are the spiritual center of the camp. You lead prayers, you visit the sick and wounded, and you hold court from your tent, settling disputes and offering counsel to the commanders. A fascinating detail of this march is the presence of the Ark of the Covenant, or at least a revered replica of it known as a tabot. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church has a tradition that a tabot from a key church accompanies the army into major battles. It is their most sacred object, their divine standard. You, with your deep piety, ensured that the tabot of Street, George, the patron saint of soldiers, was brought from its church to march with the army. Its presence transforms the soldiers into crusaders. They believe God is literally on their side, marching with them. The historical debate continues over whether the actual ark was ever moved for such events, but the presence of a consecrated tabot is undisputed, and its psychological impact was immense. You set up your own command tent next to Menelikes, a clear visual statement of your partnership. The European observers, and even some of the more traditional Ethiopian nobles, are shocked. A woman in a war camp, not as a follower, but as a leader. It is almost unheard of, but your authority is so absolute, your intelligence so respected, that no one dares to question it. You sit in on the war councils, listening to the reports from scouts and offering your own strategic insights. Your mind, trained on the G beta board, is perfectly suited to the calculations of war. You think several moves ahead, anticipating the enemy's actions and planning your counter moves. Your presence also ensures the loyalty of the diverse regional armies. The great aces are proud, powerful men, often rivals. It is your diplomatic skill, honed over decades, that helps keep them united. You remind them that they are not fighting for their own glory, but for a unified Ethiopia. You are the glue that holds the coalition together. As the massive Ethiopian army moves closer to the Italian positions, a war of nerves begins. General Baradieri underestimates your numbers and your resolve. He is being fed faulty intelligence and is under immense pressure from Rome to deliver a quick, glorious victory. He hears that the Ethiopian army is a disorganized rabble, short on supplies, and on the verge of collapse. He doesn't know that the Empress herself is there, managing logistics, bolstering morale, and plotting his demise. You are a secret weapon he cannot see and will never understand until it is too late. The stage is being set for a decisive confrontation near a town called Adwa. You arrive in the rugged, mountainous terrain around the town of Adwa in Tigray. The Ethiopian army, a sprawling, living city, sits up camp in the hills and valleys. You can see the Italian positions on the distant peaks. They have chosen a strong defensive location. The air is tense with anticipation. Both armies are playing a waiting game. The Italians are hoping your supplies will run out, forcing you to disperse. You are hoping their arrogance will lead them to make a mistake. The War Council is in constant session. Menelik, you, and the top commanders, men like Ras Makinen and Ras Alula. Brilliant strategists in their own right pore over maps sketched in the dirt. Scouts report on the Italian movements. The initial plan is to hold a strong defensive position, to lure the Italians into attacking you on ground of your choosing. It's a sound strategy, but it requires patience, and supplies are, indeed, a genuine concern. This is when you make your most direct and decisive military contribution. It's a moment that has become a cornerstone of your legend, though, like many such moments, the exact details are debated by historians. The story goes that while the male commanders were focused on the grand strategy of troop movements and frontal assaults, you were thinking about a different kind of warfare. Logistics. You knew the Italian army, like any modern army, was utterly dependent on its supply of water. You summon your own intelligence network, a group of spies and local people loyal to you. They are not soldiers, but they know the land intimately. You ask them a simple question: where do the Italians get their water? They report back that the enemy's main water source is a river in the valley, the Bilesaw. And then, you propose a brilliant and audacious plan. You suggest sending a detachment of your own troops, not to attack the main Italian force, but to move behind their lines and seize control of this critical water supply. It's a masterstroke of indirect strategy, something straight out of a GE bait, where you sacrifice a few stones to capture the whole board. Some of the more traditional generals are skeptical. They are men who believe in the glory of a direct, head-on charge. They see this as a sideshow, a woman's trick. But Menelik listens. He has learned to trust your instincts. He sees the genius in your plan, to prize the enemy of water, and you break their will to fight without a major battle. You force them to move, to come to you. He gives the order. A force is dispatched to secure the river. The plan works perfectly. The Italian army, camped out under the hot African sun, suddenly finds its primary water source cut off. Panic begins to set in. Their soldiers are thirsty, their animals are dying, and their morale is plummeting. General Bardieri is now in an impossible position. His defensive strategy has been shattered. He cannot stay where he is. He is forced to act. Under immense pressure from his own government and his desperate situation on the ground, he makes the fatal decision you were hoping for. He decides to abandon his strong defensive positions and march his army through the night in a complex, three-pronged attack, hoping to surprise and overwhelm your forces at dawn. A peculiar, almost mystical, element of the story is the role of street. George. The battle takes place on March 1. Yobajoliu. In the Ethiopian calendar, this day was the feast day of street. George, the dragon-slaying warrior saint whose tablet you had brought with the army. For your soldiers, this was not a coincidence. It was a sign of divine favor. They were going into battle on their patron saint's day, with his holy presence among them. Their morale soared. The Italian attack is a disaster from the start. Their maps are poor. Their guides are unreliable. Some historians even suggest they were secretly working for you, and their three columns get lost in the dark, unfamiliar terrain. They stumble into the valley, not as a coordinated attacking force, but as a confused, disjointed mass. You have forced your enemy's hand. You have outmaneuvered him before the first shot was even fired. Your strategic insight, born from a lifetime of careful observation and brilliant calculation, has set the perfect trap. As the sun rises over the hills of Adwa, the full might of the Ethiopian army is waiting for the disorganized Italians. The waiting is over. The battle for the soul of Ethiopia is about to begin. The dawn of March 1, Yalbajuril, breaks over the valley of Adwa. The misplaced Italian columns, tired and disoriented from their night watch, blunder directly into the jaws of your perfectly positioned army. The battle begins not with a calculated engagement, but with a roar. Tens of thousands of Ethiopian warriors, their spirits inflamed by patriotism and the holy presence of the tablet of street, George, pour down from the hillsides. The sound is overwhelming, a cacophony of war cries, the thunder of cavalry, and the crackle of rifle fire. You are not in a rear command post, miles from the action. You are right there, on a hill overlooking the main theater of battle, alongside Menelik and the other commanders. You are a visible, electrifying presence. You have a small contingent of your own riflemen, and you establish a command post near the central church of street. George, from this vantage point, you can see the sweep of the battle, the ebb and flow of the fight. You are not a passive observer. You are a commander, a rally point. You send messages, direct reinforcements, and, above all, you pray. You are the spiritual anchor in the heart of the storm. The fighting is ferocious. The Italians have superior artillery and machine guns, which inflict terrible casualties. But the Ethiopian soldiers fight with a courage that stuns their European adversaries. They charge headlong into the hail of bullets, driven by a determination to defend their homeland. The battle splinters into a series of brutal engagements across the valley. Rasmakin and his troops smash into one Italian column. Rasolulos veterans ambush another, and Menelik himself leads the Imperial Guard, a force of 25 Jaro elite soldiers, in a decisive charge at the center. Your role in this is crucial. You see a part of the Ethiopian line begin to falter under a heavy artillery barrage. Without hesitation, You order your personal artillery a few cannons you had insisted on controlling yourself to return fire, giving the wavering troops the cover they need to regroup. You are also said to have moved among the rear echelons, rallying the men who brought water and ammunition to the front lines, reminding them that their role is just as vital as the warriors. You are everywhere, doing everything, a whirlwind of focused energy. By midday, the tide has turned decisively. The Italian lines are broken, their command structure has collapsed, and their retreat has turned into a rout. The Battle of Adwa is over. It is an astonishing, world-shaking victory. An African army, armed with a mix of modern and traditional weapons, has utterly crushed a modern European army. The myth of white colonial invincibility is shattered. The news will echo across Africa, Asia, and the Americas, a thunderclap of hope for colonized peoples everywhere. The aftermath is a scene of both triumph and sorrow. The battlefield is a testament to the brutal cost of victory, but the sense of relief and national pride is immense. You have done the impossible. You have preserved your nation's freedom. In the days following the victory, you turn your attention to the defeated. Your treatment of the Italian prisoners is a subject of much discussion and some controversy. While the common Italian soldiers were generally treated humanely according to the customs of war, a harsher fate was reserved for the Eritrean Askari, the colonial troops who had fought alongside the Italians. They were seen as traitors, and many faced severe punishment. It's a stark reminder that this was not just a war against a foreign power, but also a fight to enforce loyalty and define who was truly Ethiopian. Historians still grapple with this difficult chapter, trying to balance the context of the time with modern sensibilities. Now, you prepare for your victory procession back to Addis Ababa. This is the moment to display the fruits of your cultural and military resistance. You will not return dressed as a conquering general in a drab uniform. You will return as the Empress of a triumphant, independent Ethiopia. You carefully plan your attire. It must be the ultimate expression of your sartorial manifesto. You choose the most magnificent white shama. It's TBB woven with more gold and vibrant color than ever before. It is not just a dress. It is a victory banner. It is a symbol of a nation that has fought for its identity and won. Your fashion, which began as a quiet protest, will now become the emblem of a victory that shocked the world and secured your place in history forever. The victory at Adwa transforms you. You are no longer just the brilliant and influential consort of the emperor. You are a war hero in your own right, the co-architect of a victory that has secured your nation's survival and stunned the world. Your authority, already immense, becomes nearly absolute. You use this newfound power to consolidate your position and build a network of allies that will ensure your influence endures. You begin to construct what can only be described as a government within a government. A court dominated by your loyalists and a powerful circle of female allies. Your primary power base is the court itself. You become the gatekeeper of access to the emperor. Anyone who wants to speak with Menelik, to petition him, or to win his favor must first go through you. You have a keen eye for talent and an even keener eye for loyalty. You begin to promote men who have proven their devotion to you, placing them in key positions within the government and the military. Your recommendations to Menelik carry enormous weight. He trusts your judgment of character implicitly. The ambitious nobles and officials quickly learn that the path to power runs through the Empress's chambers. Your court becomes the true center of political gravity in Addis Ababa. But your most innovative and powerful move is the cultivation of a female inner circle. In a world utterly dominated by men, you create a space for powerful women. You surround yourself with the wives, daughters, and sisters of the most important nobles in the land. This is not a social club for idle gossip. It is a sophisticated political network. These women become your eyes and ears in the various regional courts and noble households. Through them, you gather intelligence, sense shifts in political allegiance, then discreetly pass on your instructions. You host regular gatherings for these women. On the surface, they are elegant social events, feasts, coffee ceremonies, and religious observances, but beneath the veneer of sociability, serious political business is being conducted. You use these meetings to build solidarity and a shared sense of purpose. You treat these women not as subordinates, but as partners. You listen to their concerns, offer them advice, and empower them within their own households. A noblewoman who has the Empress's favor finds her own status and influence dramatically increase. A fascinating detail of these gatherings is the traditional Ethiopian coffee ceremony. This is not a quick cup of joe. It is an elaborate ritual, a central part of social and cultural life. The beans are roasted fresh, ground by hand, and then slowly brewed in a clay pot called a jibene. The coffee is served in small, handleless cups, and the process can take over an hour, accompanied by conversation and the burning of incense. You would have used this ritual to your advantage. It creates a relaxed, intimate atmosphere where information can be exchanged and alliances can be forged, all within the culturally acceptable framework of a woman's social gathering. It was the perfect cover for your political machinations. Your inner circle, as we might call it today, becomes a formidable force. When you need to put pressure on a stubborn regional lord, you don't confront him directly. You have a quiet word with his wife, who then uses her own influence within their household to steer him towards your point of view. When you need to promote a policy, you first convince the most influential women at court. Then they, in turn, help build a consensus among their male relatives. It's a brilliant use of soft power, operating in the spaces that the male-dominated political world often ignores. Of course, your growing power creates resentment. The older, more traditional nobles and commanders, who believed you overstepped your bounds at Adwa, now watch with increasing alarm as you build your own faction. They start to whisper against you, accusing you of ambition and of usurping the emperor's authority. They see your inner circle not as a group of friends, but as a cabal of conspirators. The debate among historians continues. Were you a selfless patriot, securing the empire's future, or a power-hungry politician, building your own dynasty? The answer, as is often the case, is probably a complex mix of both. You genuinely believe that your guidance is what is best for Ethiopia, and you are willing to use any means necessary to ensure that your vision prevails. You have won the war against the foreigners. Now you must secure your position in the war of whispers that is beginning to brew within your own palace. The years following the victory at Adwa are the zenith of your power. The Sun Queen is no longer just a poetic title. It is a political reality. Your influence permeates every corner of the empire. You and Menelik rule as a true DYRG, a partnership of two sovereigns whose skills perfectly complement each other. He is the grand visionary, the modernizer, the face of the empire to the outside world. You are the master of internal politics, the enforcer, the one who makes the machinery of government actually work. Together, you are an unstoppable force. Your days are a whirlwind of activity. You begin each morning with prayer, your deep piety a source of both personal strength and public legitimacy. Afterwards, your real work begins. You hold audiences for hours, listening to an endless stream of petitioners. A farmer might come to you with a land dispute, a merchant with a complaint about taxes, a minor noble seeking a promotion. You listen to them all with a focused intensity, your sharp mind quickly cutting through to the heart of the matter. Your judgments are known to be swift, fair, and final. You become the supreme court of the empire, bypassing the often slow and corrupt lower levels of the bureaucracy. You take a special interest in the development and modernization of Addis Ababa. You were its godmother, and you watch over its growth like a proud parent. You are instrumental in the founding of the first modern hotel, the Itege Hotel, to accommodate the growing number of foreign visitors. You see the need for modern infrastructure and support the construction of schools and hospitals. You even champion the creation of the first bank, the Bank of Abyssinia, understanding that a modern economy needs a modern financial system. While Menelik gets much of the credit for being the great modernizer, many of these projects were pushed and managed by you. One of your most significant, and somewhat controversial, activities is the acquisition and management of vast tracts of land. You are an astute businesswoman, and you use your position to accumulate a massive personal fortune in land and property. particularly in and around the booming capital? Is this the shrewd financial planning of a forward-thinking ruler, ensuring the long-term stability of the crown? Or is it simple greed, the abuse of power? Historians are divided on this point. What is undeniable is that you became one of the wealthiest individuals in the empire, your economic power rivaling your political influence. This wealth gives you a degree of independence that is almost unheard of, allowing you to fund your own projects and patronize your own loyalists without relying on the state treasury. Your palace becomes the epicenter of Ethiopian life. The feasts are legendary, the courtly ceremonies are dazzling, and your personal style continues to set the standard for the entire nation. But beneath the glittering surface, your political machine is hard at work. Your network of informers keeps you apprised of every plot and rumor. Your faction of loyal officials ensures that your policies are implemented. You are at the absolute center of the web, and you feel every vibration on every strand. A quirky but revealing detail from this period is your love for photography. As cameras became more common in Ethiopia, you became a frequent subject and an enthusiastic patron of the new art form. You understood its power. A photograph could project your image of regal authority far beyond the palace walls. You would pose for formal portraits, always dressed in your finest traditional garments, your expression a carefully controlled mask of serene power. These photographs were distributed throughout the empire and to foreign governments. They became the official image of the Empress, a powerful piece of propaganda that reinforced the narrative you had so carefully constructed. You were, in a way, one of the first African leaders to master the art of the photo op. This is your golden age. You have peace, you have power, and you have the unwavering trust of your husband. You have proven all your doubt is wrong. The girl from the northern aristocracy has become the most powerful woman in African history. You have everything you ever wanted. But in the world of power, the peak is a dangerous place to be. The only way from the top is down, and the whispers against you in the shadowy corners of the court are beginning to grow louder. At the height of your power, with the empire stable and your authority unchallenged, a new and insidious threat begins to emerge. It doesn't come from a foreign army or a rival noble. It comes from within the palace itself, in the form of whispers, rumors, and a growing, silent resentment from a powerful faction of courtiers. The very strength that made you indispensable is now seen as a threat. The core of the opposition comes from a group of younger, ambitious Shuan nobles. These are men whose families have been loyal to Menelik since his early days as king of Shiwa. They see you as an outsider, a northerner who has usurped their rightful place at the emperor's side. They respect your role in the victory at Adwa, but they fear your iron grip on the administration. They feel that you block their access to the emperor and stifle their own ambitions. They begin to see you not as the protector of the empire, but as a primary obstacle to their own advancement. They start a subtle but persistent campaign to undermine you. The whispers follow you down the palace corridors. She is too controlling. They murmur to each other. She makes the emperor look weak. They accuse you of being greedy, pointing to your vast land holdings as proof that you are more interested in personal wealth than the good of the nation. They use your gender against you, falling back on old prejudices. A woman's place is not in the war council. They argue, conveniently forgetting that your woman's intuition helped win the war. The chief architect of this opposition is a man named T.S. Semanadu, a powerful ras whom Menelik trusts. He is clever, patient, and skilled at court intrigue. He never confronts you directly. That would be political suicide. Instead, he plays a long game. He gathers a coalition of the discontented, the nobles you have sidelined, the officials you have disciplined, the rivals you have outmaneuvered. He becomes the quiet center of all the anti-Taytu sentiment in the court. You are, of course, aware of all of this. Your own network of spies is second to none. You hear the whispers. You see the cold looks and the forced smiles. At first, you dismiss it. You have faced down the Italian army. You are not afraid of a few jealous courtiers. You have Menelik's complete trust. And as long as he is strong, you are untouchable. You continue to rule as you always have, with a firm hand and an unwavering belief in your own judgment. A particularly bitter point of contention is your perceived nepotism. You have, naturally, promoted members of your own family from the north to positions of power. To you, this is simply a matter of placing people you can trust in important roles. To your enemies, it is proof that you favor your northern kin over the loyal Shuan aristocracy. They stoke these regional tensions, painting you as a divisive figure who is fracturing the unity you once helped to build. It's a classic political tactic, turning your greatest strength, your unifying role, into a perceived weakness. The historical debate over this period is intense. Was this opposition a legitimate political movement trying to restore a more traditional balance of power? Or was it a naked power grab by a group of ambitious men who simply wanted you out of the way? The answer is complex. The Shuan nobility had a genuine fear of being marginalized. But there is little doubt that their campaign was also fueled by personal ambition and a deep-seated sexism. They could not accept a woman wielding such immense and direct power. You find yourself increasingly isolated. The easy camaraderie of the post-Adwa years begins to fade, replaced by a tense, watchful atmosphere in the court. You have to be more careful than ever, weighing every word, scrutinizing every appointment. The game of Beta you played as a child has become deadly serious. You are still the most powerful player on the board, but your opponent's species are slowly surrounding you, cutting off your moves, waiting for you to make a single mistake. The palace, which was once your stage of triumph, is slowly becoming a gilded cage, and everything now depends on the health and strength of one man. Your husband, the Emperor. The foundation of your world begins to crack in 1906. Menelik, the vibrant, powerful emperor, your partner and protector, suffers a major stroke. He survives, but he is severely weakened, partially paralyzed and his speech impaired. The news is kept as quiet as possible, but in a palace of whispers, such a secret cannot be contained for long. Your enemies see their chance. They believe that with the emperor incapacitated, your power will crumble. They are wrong. You do not crumble. You rise. You step out of the shadows of partnership and into the harsh, direct light of command. You become the de facto ruler of the Ethiopian empire. Your days, already packed, become a relentless marathon of governance. You now preside over the council of ministers alone. You dictate letters, sign decrees with your own seal, and make all the critical decisions of state, all in the name of the ailing emperor. You tell the world, and your own people, that you are simply carrying out his wishes, that he communicates his decisions to you in private. This period is perhaps the most controversial of your entire life, and the one most fiercely debated by historians. Were you a loyal wife, selflessly taking on the burden of rule to protect your husband's legacy and the stability of the empire? Or were you an ambitious usurper, taking advantage of his illness to seize the ultimate power you had always craved? The truth, as always, is likely a messy combination of both. You undoubtedly loved your husband and were fiercely protective of him. But you also had an unshakable belief in your own ability to rule, and you were not about to let the empire fall into the hands of the men you considered your inferiors. You rule with an iron fist, knowing your position is precarious. You become even more uncompromising. You crack down on corruption, dismissing officials you suspect of disloyalty. You centralize power even further, making sure every lever of government is in the hands of someone loyal to you. Your administration is efficient, decisive, and relentlessly focused on maintaining stability. But it is also authoritarian. Those who cross you are removed from office, exiled from court, or stripped of their lands. The Shuan nobility, led by the patient Tadias, watches this with growing fury. They see you transforming the empire into your own personal fiefdom. A fascinating and poignant detail from this time concerns the attempts to heal Menelik. Desperate for a cure, you bring in not only traditional Ethiopian healers with their herbal remedies and prayers, but also European doctors with their modern medicine. Photographs from the era show these European physicians at court, a testament to your willingness to try anything to restore your husband's health. You even allow them to use a galvanic battery, a primitive form of electrotherapy, on the emperor. It's a strange and sad image. The great conqueror of Adwa, the modernizing monarch, now a patient for these desperate, quasi-scientific experiments. None of them work. Menelik's health continues to decline. As regent, your every move is scrutinized. Your enemies look for any sign of weakness, any misstep. They challenge your decisions in the council, arguing that you do not have the authority to act without the emperor's explicit public consent. You counter them with your sharp intellect and your deep knowledge of law and custom, but the constant battles are exhausting. You find yourself increasingly alone. The weight of the entire empire is on your shoulders. You have the power you have always been suited for, but you are exercising it in a vacuum, without the partner who had always been your sounding board and your shield. The court is a lonely, dangerous place. The men who smile at you in the council chamber are plotting against you in their homes. You know you are in a race against time. You must secure your position and your vision for Ethiopia before your enemies can gather enough strength to depose you, and before the flickering candle of Menelik's life is finally extinguished. The final, most dangerous chapter of your political life has begun. The question of succession hangs over the empire like a gathering storm. Menelik is fading, and he has no sons. The future of the Solomonic dynasty and the stability of the nation you fought so hard to protect rests on choosing an heir. This issue becomes the final battleground for your war with the Shuan nobles. It is a complex, heartbreaking struggle that will ultimately seal your political fate. The designated heir is Elijah Iyasu, Menelik's grandson from a previous daughter. He is just a boy, a teenager, when Menelik's health collapses. According to tradition and Menelik's own wishes, Iyasu is the rightful successor. You know this, but you have deep, grave misgivings about him. You have watched him grow up in the court, and you see in him not the makings of a great emperor, but a spoiled, and disciplined, and dangerously impulsive youth. He seems more interested in his own pleasures than in the weighty matters of state. You fear that if he takes the throne, he will be easily manipulated by your enemies and that everything you and Menelik have built will unravel. You propose your own candidate, your stepdaughter, Ciwditu. She is Menelik's daughter from a previous marriage, a pious, respected, and more conservative figure. More importantly, she is married to your nephew, Raskuji Sawel. If Ciwditu becomes Empress, your family's influence will be secured for another generation. Your nephew would be the power behind the throne, and you would be the revered Empress Dowager, the ultimate elder stateswoman. It is a brilliant political move, a way to ensure your legacy and keep the empire on the course you have set. This is the moment your enemies have been waiting for. They can now paint you not as a loyal regent, but as a self-serving schemer trying to subvert the legitimate line of succession for your own family as gain. Your support for Ciwditu over the designated heir, Elijah is the final proof they need to convince the wider political class that you have overreached. The Shuan faction, led by the Cunning Ts Emanadu, rallies fiercely around the young Iyasu. They portray themselves as the loyal defenders of Menelik's true will, fighting against a power-hungry queen. The palace becomes a pit of intrigue. The two factions yours, supporting Ciwditu, and the Shuans, supporting Iyasu, are in open conflict. Allegiances shift daily. Promises are made and broken. It's a battle for the loyalty of the army, the support of the church, and the allegiance of the regional lords. You use all the tools at your disposal. Your wealth, your network of allies, and your still considerable authority as regent. But you are fighting an uphill battle. The tradition of male primogeniture is strong. And Elijah Iyasu, for all his faults, is the designated male heir. A curious and little-known aspect of this struggle was the war of proclamations. Both sides would issue official decrees and pronouncements, trying to win public opinion. One day, a proclamation would be read in the marketplace declaring that the Empress's council had full authority. The next day, a rival proclamation from the Shuan faction would appear, reaffirming Elijah Iyasu as the sole source of future power. It was a chaotic and confusing time for the people of Addis Ababa, who were caught in the middle of this high-stakes power struggle. The tipping point comes in 1910. The Shuan faction feels strong enough to make their move. They orchestrate what amounts to a palace coup. They convene a grand council of the empire's most powerful figures, ostensibly to address the crisis of governance. But their true purpose is to strip you of your power. They force the issue of the regency. They argue that with Etege now coming of age, a single, all-powerful regent is no longer necessary or appropriate. They propose that your authority be transferred to a council of ministers, which they, of course, will control. They secure the backing of the Abuna, the head of the church, and co-commanders in the army. You are outmaneuvered. The coalition against you is too strong. You have no move left to play on the GE Beta board. To resist further would be to risk open civil war, something you are not willing to do. You have spent your life fighting to keep Ethiopia united, and you will not be the one to tear it apart. In a final, painful audience, you are forced to agree to their terms. Your regency is over. The transfer of power is swift and clinical. The Council of Ministers, headed by your old rival Ras Tes Emanodu, is now the supreme authority in the land, acting in the name of the heir, Elijah Ayosu. You are formally stripped of your role as regent. It is a public humiliation, a carefully orchestrated dismantling of the authority you have wielded for decades. You are no longer the Sun Queen at the center of the universe. You are a satellite cast into a distant, fading orbit. Your first order of business is a painful one. You are compelled to leave the Grand Palace, the GEBI, which has been your home and the seat of your power for over 20 years. It is the place where you work round, where you plan the victory of Adwa, and where you ruled an empire. Every hall, every room, holds a memory of your triumphs and your struggles. Now, you must pack your belongings and depart, leaving it to your enemies. You move to a smaller palace on the slopes of Taytu, the mountain overlooking Addis Ababa, the very place where you and Menelik first decided to build the new flower. It's a poetic and poignant retreat, returning to the city's origins as you exit its political stage. Your faction is systematically purged from the government. Officials loyal to you are dismissed. Your relatives are removed from their powerful posts. Your network, so carefully built over so many years, is unraveled strand by strand. You are effectively placed under a form of house arrest. You are not imprisoned in a dungeon, but you are confined to your new residence. Your visitors monitored, your correspondence read. Your enemies want to ensure that you cannot become a rallying point for any future opposition. They want to erase you from the political life of the nation. You watch from a distance as the new government takes shape. You see the young Elijah Yosu, now free from your stern oversight, indulging his whims. You hear the stories of his erratic behavior, his disregard for the old nobles, and, most alarmingly, his growing fascination with Islam, which deeply alienates the powerful Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Everything you feared about him is coming true. There is a bitter, painful irony in it all. You were deposed for trying to prevent this very outcome. You were accused of disloyalty for trying to save the empire from a ruler you knew was unfit. This period of your life is a subject of some historical mystery. The official records fall silent about you. You disappear from the public narrative. What did you do during these years of forced retirement? Did you burn with rage and plot your return? Or did you find a measure of peace in your seclusion? Most accounts suggest a combination of quiet dignity and simmering frustration. You devote yourself to prayer, to managing your remaining estates, and to the care of your still living but completely incapacitated husband, Menelik, who had been moved to Taytu with you. A small, humanizing detail from this time is your continued interest in gardening. On the grounds of your new home, you cultivate a garden, just as you had cultivated the city of Addis Ababa itself. It's a quiet, contemplative act. You pour your formidable energy into the soil, into bringing forth life and order from the earth. It is perhaps a way of exercising the control you no longer have in the political realm. You are still the Empress. even if your empire has shrunk to the size of a garden plot. Menelik finally dies in December 1913. His passing is kept secret by the new regime for months, a testament to their fear of the instability it might unleash. For you, it is the final severance of your link to the world you once commanded. Your partner, your protector, the source of your legitimate power, is gone. You are now truly alone. The Empress Dowager in name only, a relic of a bygone era. Your enemies have won. They have taken your power, your position, and your husband. All you have left are your memories and your unshakable, indomitable pride. You have been forced from the game, but you know the game isn't over. The seeds of chaos you predicted are already beginning to sprout. The years drift by in the cool, eucalyptus-scented air of the Taytu hills. Your world has shrunk, but your mind remains as sharp as ever. From your gilded cage, you become a silent observer of the history you helped to create. Messengers still come to you, secretly, in the dead of night. Old loyalists, disenfranchised nobles, and concerned priests bring you news from the capital. They tell you of Iyas's increasingly erratic reign, confirming all your worst fears. You listen as they describe his attempts to build alliances with Islamic groups at the expense of the Christian establishment, a move that is fracturing the very soul of the empire. You hear how he alienates the old Shuan nobility, the very men who put him in power with his arrogance and his preference for his own regional followers. The irony is not lost on you. The men who accused you of nepotism and divisiveness are now being torn apart by the far more reckless favoritism of their own chosen leader. Do you feel a grim, bitter sense of vindication? You were right. You were right about all of it. In your quiet moments, you reflect. You walk through your gardens, the scent of roses and jasmine filling the air. Use it for hours, the book of Psalms in your lap. Its verses a source of comfort as they were in your youth. You are no longer playing the great game, so you can finally see the whole board with a detached clarity. You think back on your life. Alone, epic journey from a noble's daughter to the most powerful woman in Africa. You remember the thrill of your first lessons in Cunning, the strategic satisfaction of a well-played game of GE Beta, the fear and excitement of your coronation. You think of Adwa. You can still hear the roar of the battle, still see the flash of cannons. You remember the immense pride, the overwhelming relief of that victory. You preserved your nation. You secured its freedom. Whatever happened afterwards, whatever political losses you suffered, they can never take that away from you. That victory is etched into the history of the world, and your name is forever tied to it. This is the bedrock of your legacy, the thought you hold on to in the long, quiet afternoons. There's a debate among historians about your true feelings during this time. Some portray you as a tragic, Lear-like figure, stripped of power and consumed by bitterness. Others suggest you found a kind of stoic peace, a spiritual resignation to your fate, content in the knowledge that you had done your duty as you saw fit. The truth is probably somewhere in the human space between those two extremes. You were too proud to be purely tragic, and too much of a fighter to be entirely at peace. You were to battle, and you were surely both bitter and serene, resentful and resigned, all at once. In 1916, the news you have been expecting finally arrives. The Shuan nobility, in alliance with the heads of the Orthodox Church, have run out of patience. They officially depose Iyasu. They accuse him of apostasy, of abandoning the Christian faith of his ancestors. The empire is in turmoil. A short civil war erupts, and Iyasu is defeated and forced to flee, becoming a fugitive for the rest of his life. And who do they choose to put on the throne? Your candidate, Giwditu. Your stepdaughter, the woman you had championed years ago, is crowned Empress of Ethiopia, the first woman to rule the nation in her own right since the Queen of Sheba. It is the ultimate, stunning vindication of your political foresight. But the victory is bittersweet. You are not the one to guide her. The nobles ensure you remain in seclusion, fearing your influence over the new Empress. They install their own strongman, a young and progressive Ras named Tafori Makanen, the future Emperor Haile Selassie. As the regent heir, they have finally embraced your succession plan, but they have written you out of it. You receive the news with a quiet, knowing smile. You have won the last game, even from your exile. Your vision for the empire, the female ruler from Menelik's line, has come to pass. Your enemies had to resort to your plan to save themselves from their own mistakes. You have no more moves to make. Your part in the story is over. You have fought. You have ruled. You have won. And you have lost. Now, all that is left is to rest and wait for your own final summons. Your final years are a quiet diminuendo, a slow fading of the brilliant light that once illuminated an entire empire. You remain in your home on Enter 2, a living monument to a glorious past. The new Empress, Taytu, your stepdaughter, treats you with the deep respect and affection she has always held for you. She visits you, seeks your private counsel, and ensures that you are cared for with all the dignity befitting an Empress Dowager. But your public role is over. You are a cherished ancestor, not an active participant. The world you knew is changing rapidly. The young regent, Rastafari Makinen, is pushing the country in a new, more aggressively modern direction. Cars are becoming more common on the streets of Addis Ababa, the city you founded. The political games are being played by a new generation of men, with new rules and new ambitions. You watch it all from your serene distance, a figure from an epic poem living in an age of prose. Your health begins to fail. The fire that drove you for so long is banking, its embers glowing softly now. In early 1918, you fall gravely ill. The cause is recorded as heart failure, but one could say you died of a long and brilliant life. A life that had held more triumphs and turmoil than a dozen ordinary lifetimes. As you lie in your bed, the great events of your past must have played out in your mind like a dream. The faces of your father, of Menelik, of the generals at Adwa, the feel of the crown on your head, the texture of a finely woven shema, the sacred soil of Ethiopia beneath your bare feet. You pass away peacefully in February 1918. Your death marks the true end of an era. The Empress who had defied a European superpower, who had built a capital city, and who had ruled an ancient empire with an iron will and a brilliant mind, is gone. Your funeral is a major state occasion, an outpouring of national grief and respect. Your body is brought down from the hills of N2 and carried in a great procession through the streets of Addis Ababa. The people you had ruled, protected, and sometimes terrorized, line the streets to catch a final glimpse of their formidable Itege. They remember you not just as the wife of Menelik, but as a ruler in your own right. They tell the stories of your wit against the arrogant envoy, of your strategy at Adwa, of your unwavering defense of your faith and your nation. You are laid to rest next to your husband, Menelik, in the crypt of the Itege Negest Betul Amariam Monastery in Addis Ababa. You are reunited with him in death as you were in life, the twin pillars of a pivotal moment in your nation's history. The historical assessment of your life begins almost immediately and continues to this day. Was you a feminist icon or a ruthless despot? A brilliant patriot or a self-serving schemer? A modernizer or an arch-conservative? You were, of course, all of these things and none of them. You were a complex, contradictory, and utterly extraordinary human being who defied easy labels. You were Taytu, the sun, and your light, though its source is gone, continues to shine, a permanent, indelible part of the Ethiopian story. Your sartorial manifesto became a chapter in the history books, your life a testament to the idea that a nation's soul can be defended with courage, with wisdom, and sometimes with a perfectly chosen dress. And so, the story of the great Empress comes to a gentle close. The echoes of her footsteps fade in the long halls of the palace, and the rustle of her white shama is now just a whisper on the wind. The world keeps turning, as it always does, but the path she carved remains. It's a path of pride, of defiance, of a beauty so strong it became a shield. Now, as our journey ends, let the quiet settle around you. Feel the weight of your own day begin to lift, replaced by the soft, comforting weight of your blanket. The grand stage of history with all its battles and its triumphs, recedes into the background, becoming a distant, shimmering tapestry in the landscape of your dreams. You can let go of the story now. Let it drift. You are floating in that gentle space between wakefulness and sleep, a place of peace and soft shadows. The world outside is quiet. The concerns of tomorrow can wait. Tonight, there is only this moment of stillness, this slow, easy breath. Imagine you are in that garden on the hill. The air cool and sweet with the scent of night-blooming flowers. The great Empress is at peace, and so are you. Your mind is quiet. Your body is heavy and relaxed. There is nothing left to do but to drift, to flow, to sink deeper and deeper into a restful, restorative sleep. The story is over. Your own rest is just beginning. The end of the article. Good night.